Admiral Sarah Chen stared at the massive screen in the war room buried deep beneath Geneva. The alien faces looking back at her showed no emotion, but she could feel their hatred burning through the transmission. 3 species had joined together to deliver this message, and none of them looked happy about having to deal with humanity anymore. The Zephyrian ambassador spoke first. His tall, thin frame and pale blue skin made him look like a statue carved from ice. "Humans of Earth," he said in perfect English, though his accent made every word sound sharp and cold. "The Galactic Council has reached its final decision regarding your species." Chen felt her jaw tighten. She had been expecting this moment for months. The signs had been there for anyone smart enough to read them. Trade agreements suddenly canceled. Diplomatic meetings that ended badly. Alien ships avoiding human space routes. The galaxy was getting ready to do something about the human problem. The Nexari representative stepped forward next. These aliens looked more like humans, but their silver eyes and the way they moved with perfect precision made Chen's skin crawl. "Your species has proven incompatible with civilized space," the Nexari said. "You are too aggressive, too unpredictable, too dangerous to exist alongside peaceful worlds." Chen almost laughed. Peaceful worlds? That was rich coming from species that had conquered half the galaxy before humans even learned to make fire. But she kept her face blank and let them talk. The third alien was the worst. The Vorthak had been around for thousands of years, and they acted like they owned the universe. This one was ancient even by their standards, its wrinkled skin covered in the ritual scars that marked its high rank. "We have been patient with your kind," it wheezed through its translator device. "We welcomed you into galactic society despite your violent history. We tried to teach you civilized behavior. You have failed to learn." The 3 aliens stood together now, presenting a united front. The Zephyrian spoke again. "Therefore, the Galactic Council offers you one final choice. You will immediately disarm all military vessels and installations. You will surrender all weapons technology to Council oversight. You will accept permanent quarantine to your home system. Your species will never again be permitted to leave Sol space." Chen felt her heart rate spike, but her face remained calm. Around the war room, dozens of other officers watched the screen with growing anger. General Morrison's hand moved closer to his sidearm. Colonel Park's face had gone completely white, but they all waited for their admiral to respond. The Nexari continued the ultimatum. "If you refuse these terms, the combined fleets of the Galactic Council will arrive at your system in 72 hours. We will not negotiate. We will not show mercy. Every human world, every human ship, every human life will be eliminated from the universe." The Vorthak leaned closer to the camera. "We know your species well enough by now. You will probably choose to fight rather than accept wisdom. This would be a mistake. Our combined fleets number in the thousands. Your entire military could not stop even one of our battle groups. Surrender now and your children might live as prisoners. Fight us and your children will not live at all." The transmission cut to static, leaving the war room in complete silence. Chen stood slowly and walked to the massive tactical display that dominated the center of the room. Earth hung in the middle, surrounded by the dots that represented human colonies, defense stations, and patrol fleets. It looked so small compared to the vast map of galactic space beyond. "Admiral?" General Morrison asked quietly. "What are your orders?" Chen touched a control panel, and the tactical display zoomed out to show the entire galaxy. Thousands of alien worlds glowed in different colors, each representing a different species under Council control. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Get me a direct line to all fleet commanders," she said. "Priority Alpha encryption. I want every ship captain, every station commander, every military installation connected in the next 10 minutes. Colonel Park moved to her communication station. "Admiral, if we send a message on Alpha encryption, the aliens will know we're planning something. Their listening posts will detect the traffic patterns." Chen smiled for the first time since the transmission began. "Good. I want them to know we're planning something. I want them to wonder what humans do when we're backed into a corner." The communication links came online one by one. Ship captains from the outer colonies appeared on smaller screens around the room. Station commanders from the asteroid belt checked in. Deep Space Patrol leaders confirmed their readiness. Within 15 minutes, every human military officer in the solar system was connected to the war room. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chen began, "you all heard the alien ultimatum. 72 hours to surrender or face extinction. I'm sure many of you are wondering what we could possibly do against such overwhelming odds. She paused and looked directly into the main camera. I want you all to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. For the past 150 years since first contact with alien civilization, humanity has been preparing for this exact moment. Every trade mission we sent out was also a reconnaissance mission. Every diplomatic posting included intelligence gathering. Every human who left Sol system has been collecting information we might need someday. The faces on the screens showed growing surprise and understanding. Chen continued. We knew this day would come because we studied these aliens. We learned their weaknesses, their fears, their tactical doctrines. Most importantly, we learned that they think they understand us, but they don't understand us at all. She turned back to the tactical display. Protocol 7 is now in effect. All deep cover operatives are authorized to begin Phase 1 operations immediately. All fleet commanders will implement defensive positions according to the Prometheus plan. All civilian populations will be moved to secure locations. Within 18 hours, Admiral Harrison from the Mars Defense Fleet spoke up. Admiral Chen, what's our official response to the Council ultimatum? Chen walked back to the communication console and opened a direct channel to the same frequency the aliens had used for their message. She knew they would be monitoring it, waiting to hear humanity beg for mercy or make desperate threats. This is Admiral Sarah Chen, Supreme Commander of Human Defense Forces, responding to the Galactic Council ultimatum, she said in a clear, calm voice. The United Worlds of Humanity reject your terms completely. You want war? Then observe closely. She cut the transmission and turned back to her officers. The war room buzzed with activity as orders went out across the solar system. Ships moved to new positions. Weapons platforms came online. Hidden installations began broadcasting activation signals. But the real message was going out on channels the aliens didn't even know existed. Deep in space, human operatives who had been waiting for years received their final orders. The time for watching and learning was over. The time for action had begun. Chen looked at the chronometer on the wall. 71 hours and 43 minutes until the alien fleets arrived. It would be enough time. It had to be enough time, because the aliens were about to learn something about humanity that would change the galaxy forever. They thought they were hunting sheep. They were about to discover they had awakened wolves. Captain James Riley had been running a small trading post on Nexari Prime for 12 years. To everyone around him, he was just another human merchant trying to make a living in alien space. He sold Earth coffee, human art, and simple electronics to curious Nexari customers. His shop was small and cluttered, nothing special to look at. The Nexari security forces had checked his background dozens of times. Human merchant born on Luna Colony, moved to alien space to seek better opportunities. Clean record, no military service, no connections to Earth government, just another harmless human trying to fit into galactic society. They never suspected that James Riley was actually Lieutenant Colonel James Mitchell, one of humanity's top intelligence operatives. When the coded signal reached his hidden receiver, Riley was helping a young Nexari couple pick out wedding gifts. He smiled and made polite conversation while his mind processed the activation order he had been waiting years to receive. Protocol 7 was in effect. Phase 1 was beginning. I'm sorry, he told his customers, but I need to close early today. Family emergency back on Earth. The Nexari couple left with understanding nods. Riley locked his shop and walked calmly to the back room. Behind a false wall, he had equipment that could hack into the Nexari military communication network. Within minutes, he was uploading a virus that would crash their fleet coordination systems at exactly the right moment. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on hundreds of alien worlds. On Zephyria, Dr. Sarah Kim had spent 8 years working as a xenobiologist, studying alien plant life. Her research papers were well respected in academic circles. Her colleagues saw her as a dedicated scientist who rarely left her laboratory. None of them knew she had been mapping every military installation on the planet and identifying the weak points in their defensive systems. When her activation signal came through, Dr. Kim began uploading detailed target coordinates to a network that would relay them to human strike teams. By tomorrow, every important Zephyrian military facility would be marked for destruction. On the ancient Vorthak homeworld, Master Chef David Park ran the most popular human restaurant in the capital city. Even high-ranking Vorthak officials came to taste his famous Earth dishes. They loved his stories about human culture and his humble attitude toward their superior civilization. Chef Park had been poisoning them slowly for 3 years. Not enough to kill them, but enough to make their immune systems weak and their reaction times slow. The special ingredients in his most popular dishes contained compounds that would make the Vorthak leadership sick and confused just when they needed to be sharp and ready for war. They would never trace it back to the friendly human cook who always seemed so grateful for their business. Back in Sol system, the hidden defenses were revealing themselves. What looked like ordinary asteroids in the belt suddenly opened up like mechanical flowers, showing weapon systems that had been built and hidden over decades. Mining stations extended massive gun barrels that had been disguised as ore processing equipment. Even some of the smaller moons around Jupiter and Saturn split open to reveal missile batteries and shield generators. Admiral Chen watched it all from her command center, feeling a mix of pride and sadness. Humanity had spent so much time and effort preparing for this moment. They had sacrificed normal relations with the galaxy, always keeping secrets, always preparing for war. But it had been necessary. "Admiral," reported Captain Torres from the Asteroid Belt Command Station, "all Prometheus installations are online and ready. We have full coverage of all approach routes to Earth. Mars, defense reports all civilian populations. Secured in underground facilities," added Colonel Park from her communication station. "Jupiter fleet is in position and waiting for orders," came another report. Chen nodded and turned to the intelligence station. "Status report on our deep cover operations?" Commander Walsh pulled up data on his screens. "We have operatives active on 47 alien worlds. Military communication networks are being compromised on 12 Nexari planets. Zephyrian defense systems are being mapped and marked for targeting. Vorthak leadership is experiencing health issues." "Good. What about the special weapons?" Walsh smiled. "The Nexari don't know it yet, but their newest battleships have a fatal flaw. Our people working in their shipyards made some very small modifications to the reactor systems. When those ships try to charge their main weapons, they're going to get a very unpleasant surprise." Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Nexari were so proud of their logical, efficient minds. They built everything according to perfect mathematical models. But they had trusted human engineers to help with some of the more complex systems. That trust was about to cost them their entire newest fleet. "Time until alien arrival?" she asked. 62 hours and 18 minutes, answered General Morrison. Chen looked at the tactical display again. The alien fleets were huge, just as they had threatened. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, all coming to Sol system to end the human problem once and for all. By pure numbers, humanity didn't stand a chance in a straight fight, but Chen had no intention of fighting fair. "Begin Phase 2 preparations," she ordered. "All civilian ships are to be evacuated from the outer system immediately. I want every non-military vessel back behind the Mars defensive line within 24 hours. "Admiral," asked Colonel Park, "what about the merchant ships and passenger liners that are still in alien space? Should we warn them to run?" Chen shook her head. "No. Any unusual behavior might alert the aliens that we're more prepared than they think. Our people in alien space know the risks. They accepted them when they volunteered for deep cover assignments." She turned to the main communication station. "Open a channel to all fleet commanders. Full encryption." When the connection was established, Chen addressed the faces on her screens. "Ladies and gentlemen, in approximately 60 hours, the largest alien fleet in galactic history will arrive at the edge of our solar system. They expect to find a frightened, desperate species ready to beg for mercy. Instead, they're going to find something that will remind the galaxy why humans survived and thrived on one of the most dangerous planets in known space." She paused to let that sink in. "We're not just fighting for our survival. We're fighting to establish a new understanding of humanity's place in this galaxy. When this is over, every alien species will know that humans are not prey. We are not victims. We are not sheep to be herded." Admiral Harrison from Mars leaned forward. "What are we then, Admiral?" Chen's smile was cold and sharp. "We're the thing that goes bump in the night. We're the nightmare that waits in the dark. We're the monsters that monsters fear." She cut the transmission and turned back to her staff. 60 hours until they arrive? By the time they get here, I want them to be so confused and frightened that they'll be making mistakes before the first shot is fired." Outside, hidden weapon systems continued to come online across the solar system. Deep space sensors tracked the approaching alien fleets, and on dozens of alien worlds, human operatives prepared to strike at the heart of enemy territory. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had been preparing for this war since the day they first met aliens. They had been patient, careful, and thorough. Now it was time to show their work. Fleet Admiral Zenth of the Nixari battle group felt confident as his ships approached the edge of Sol system. Behind him followed the largest military force the galaxy had ever assembled. 3,000 warships from a dozen different species, all united in their determination to end the human threat once and for all. Long-range sensors are detecting human defensive positions, reported his tactical officer. They appear to be concentrated around the fourth planet from their star. Zenth looked at the tactical display with satisfaction. The humans were doing exactly what Nexari battle computers had predicted. They were pulling back to defend their homeworld, abandoning the outer system to concentrate their forces. It was logical but ultimately useless against such overwhelming odds. Signal the fleet, Zenth ordered. All ships will proceed to the fourth planet. We will destroy their defenses and then move on to the third planet where most humans live. This will be over quickly. But as the alien fleet moved deeper into Sol system, things began to go wrong. The first problem started with the Nexari ships themselves. The newest battleships, pride of their fleet, began experiencing power fluctuations as they charged their main weapons. Engineering teams rushed to fix what seemed like minor technical issues. But the problems kept getting worse. Then the Zephyrian contingent reported that their communication systems were being jammed by unknown sources. They couldn't coordinate properly with the other fleet elements. Their perfect formation began to break apart as ship captains tried to guess what their orders should be. The Vorthak battle group was having different problems. Their admirals were making strange decisions, ordering unnecessary course changes and weapon system tests. The ancient species that prided itself on military tradition was acting confused and uncertain. Admiral Zenth tried to maintain control, but his own ships were starting to malfunction. "Engineering report," he demanded. "What is causing these power failures?" "Admiral," came the nervous reply. "Our reactor systems are overloading when we try to charge the primary weapons. The safety systems keep shutting down the main guns to prevent core explosions." Zenth felt his first touch of worry. "How is that possible? These ships are brand new. They passed every inspection. We're investigating, Admiral, but the problems seem to be built into the basic design, as if someone sabotaged the blueprints themselves." That was when Captain Marcus Rodriguez struck with his small human fleet. Rodriguez had been waiting in the shadow of Jupiter with just 50 human ships. Against 3,000 alien vessels, it looked like suicide. The alien commanders barely noticed the tiny human force moving to intercept them. "Human fleet detected," reported the Nexari tactical officer. 50 vessels, mostly outdated designs. Should we bother to respond? Admiral Zenth almost ignored them completely. 50 ships against 3,000 was not even worth thinking about. But something made him hesitate. The human formation looked wrong somehow. They were approaching in a scattered pattern that made no tactical sense. "Signal those human ships," he ordered. "Demand their immediate surrender." The response came back quickly. Captain Rodriguez appeared on the communication screen, looking calm and professional in his human military uniform. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the United Earth Defense Force. You are in violation of Sol system space. Turn around and leave immediately." Zenth could not believe what he was hearing. "Human, you have 50 ships. I have 3,000. Surrender now and you will be permitted to die quickly." Rodriguez smiled. "Admiral, you seem to have miscounted. You don't have 3,000 ships. You have whatever number can actually shoot their weapons without exploding. Based on our calculations, that's about 40% of your Nexari vessels, 60% of your Zephyrian ships, and maybe 20% of your Vorthak fleet." "What are you talking about?" Zenth demanded. "Check your weapon systems," Rodriguez suggested helpfully. "Try to charge your main guns to full power." "Go ahead, I'll wait." Zenth felt ice in his veins, but he gave the order anyway. Across his fleet, ships attempted to bring their primary weapons online for a demonstration of power that would terrify the humans into surrender. Instead, one after another, Nexari battleships began shutting down their reactor systems as safety protocols engaged. Warning klaxons blared across dozens of ships as engineering teams scrambled to prevent core meltdowns. "Impossible," Zenth whispered. "Our engineers have been working in your shipyards for 15 years, Rodriguez explained casually. "Very small modifications to very important systems. Nothing that would show up in normal inspections, but when you try to push those reactors to combat power, he shrugged. Well, your own safety systems do the rest. The Zephyrian contingent was discovering their own problems. Their communication jammers turned out to be human-made devices that had been installed in their ships during routine maintenance operations. The Zephyrian fleet was effectively blind and deaf. The Vorthak commanders were dealing with delayed action poisoning that made their thoughts foggy and their reactions slow. Decisions that should have taken seconds were taking minutes. Orders that should have been clear came out confused and contradictory. "This is impossible," Admiral Zenth shouted into his communicator. "You cannot have sabotaged our entire fleet." "Not your entire fleet," Rodriguez agreed. "Just the important parts. Your troop transports are fine. Your supply ships work perfectly. Your scout vessels are completely functional. It's only your warships that have problems." Zenth realized with growing horror what this meant. The alien fleet had been designed to crush human resistance through overwhelming firepower. But if the weapons didn't work, if the communication systems were compromised, if the command structure was failing, "You still outnumber us 60-1, he said desperately. "True," Rodriguez nodded. "But numbers only matter if you can coordinate your forces and bring your weapons to bear. Right now you've got 3,000 ships that can't talk to each other, can't shoot their main guns, and are being commanded by officers who are too sick or confused to fight effectively." Rodriguez leaned forward on his screen. "Admiral, would you like to see what 50 human ships can do against 3,000 alien ships that can't fight back?" The human fleet suddenly changed formation. What had looked like a scattered, disorganized approach revealed itself as a carefully planned attack pattern. Human ships moved with precision and purpose, targeting the alien vessels that were struggling with technical failures. The first human missile salvos struck Nexari battleships that couldn't raise their defensive shields because all power was being routed to prevent reactor meltdowns. Zephyrian cruisers tried to return fire, but couldn't coordinate their targeting because their communication systems were feeding them false data. Vorthak commanders issued conflicting orders that sent their ships into collision courses with each other. The ancient military tradition that had conquered half the galaxy was falling apart because their admirals couldn't think clearly enough to remember basic tactics. In 30 minutes, Rodriguez's 50 ships had destroyed or disabled over 200 alien vessels. The rest of the fleet was in complete chaos, with ships fleeing in random directions or simply shutting down their systems to prevent further disasters. Admiral Zenth watched his mighty armada fall apart and felt something he had never experienced before. Pure, overwhelming fear. Not fear of death, but fear of the unknown. Fear of an enemy that fought in ways he couldn't understand or predict. "How?" he whispered. "How did you know exactly what to do?" Rodriguez's smile was cold and sharp. "Admiral, we've been studying you for over a century. We know how you think, how you fight, how you react to stress. Most importantly, we know that you think you understand us, but you don't understand us at all." He paused and looked directly into the camera. "You came here expecting to fight other aliens. Instead, you're fighting humans. And humans don't fight fair. We fight to win." The communication cut off, leaving Admiral Zenth staring at a blank screen while his fleet burned around him. In the distance, more human ships were appearing from hiding places throughout the solar system. The trap was closing, and he was beginning to understand that this had never been a battle. It had been an execution. High command of the Zephyrian Empire had never experienced panic before. For 3,000 years, their species had conquered worlds through superior technology and flawless military planning. They approached war like a mathematical equation, with predictable inputs leading to certain outcomes, but the reports coming in from across their empire made no sense at all. "Sir," reported Intelligence Director Call, his normally steady voice shaking, "we're receiving distress calls from 17 of our core worlds. Military installations are under attack, but not by any ships or forces we can identify." Supreme Commander Vex studied the tactical displays with growing confusion. Red warning lights marked Zephyrian worlds that were reporting attacks, but the pattern made no logical sense. The targets weren't strategic choke points or major fleet bases. Instead, the attack seemed focused on communication hubs, supply depots, and civilian morale centers. "What kind of weapons are being used?" Vex demanded. "That's the problem, sir. The attacks aren't using weapons in any traditional sense. On Zephyria Prime, someone introduced a computer virus into our planetary defense grid. The system is shooting down our own ships. On Kellar Station, The main reactor went critical due to what appears to be sabotage that happened months ago. On Nexal Colony, the food production centers have been contaminated with chemicals that make the food taste horrible, but aren't actually poisonous. Vex felt his logical mind struggling to process this information. Why would an enemy contaminate food to make it taste bad instead of poisoning it? Unknown, sir. But the psychological effect on our colonists has been severe. Morale is collapsing across the affected worlds. Citizens are demanding to know why their government can't protect them from an enemy they can't even see. The worst part was the propaganda broadcasts. Somehow human agents had hacked into Zephyrian communication networks and were broadcasting intercepted military transmissions. Citizens across the Empire were hearing their own commanders admitting they had no idea what was happening or how to stop it. Sir, another officer reported, we're also receiving reports that our military codes have been compromised. The humans seem to know our fleet movements before we do. They're intercepting our communications and feeding false information back into our networks, Supreme Commander Vex realized, with growing horror that the Zephyrian Empire was fighting an enemy that had been inside their systems for years, maybe decades. Every computer network, every communication channel, every military installation had been infiltrated so thoroughly that the humans knew Zephyrian plans better than the Zephyrians themselves. But the situation was even worse on Nexari worlds. Chancellor Prime Nexus had built his entire political career on the promise of Nexari logical superiority. Their species made decisions based on pure mathematics and flawless reasoning. Emotion was weakness. Unpredictability was chaos. The Nexari way was order, precision, and inevitable victory through superior planning. The human attacks made a mockery of everything the Nexari believed about themselves. Report, demanded the Chancellor, though his perfect composure was beginning to crack. Sir, the humans are not following any logical attack pattern. On Nexari Beta, they destroyed our weather control system, causing massive storms that make military operations impossible. On Nexari Gamma, they release thousands of small robots that do nothing but play loud, annoying music 24 hours a day. The psychological effect on our citizens is significant. And our battle fleet and Sol system? The military advisor hesitated. Sir, Admiral Zenth's last transmission indicated that 60% of our newest battleships cannot fire their primary weapons due to reactor safety lockouts. Engineering analysis suggests the problems were built into the ships during construction. Chancellor Prime Nexus felt something that Nexari were not supposed to experience: complete confusion. How is that possible? Our ship designs are flawless. Every system is checked and rechecked. Sir, we believe human engineers working in our shipyards may have made modifications that only become apparent under combat conditions. The changes were so subtle that they passed all quality inspections. The Chancellor stared at his advisors with growing disbelief. Are you telling me that humans spent years building flaws into our ships, knowing that someday we might go to war? It appears so, sir. They seem to have been preparing for this conflict since first contact. Every human who worked in our industrial facilities, every human who served in our diplomatic corps, every human trader who visited our worlds. They were all gathering intelligence and positioning assets for eventual use against us. But the situation was worst of all on the ancient Vorthak, homeworld. Elder Warlord Krex had commanded armies for over 800 years. He had conquered 47 star systems and never lost a single battle. His strategic brilliance was legendary across the galaxy, but now he could barely remember what he had ordered for breakfast. Warlord, his aide said carefully, you asked me to remind you about the fleet status report. Krex blinked slowly, his ancient mind struggling to focus. Everything seemed foggy and confused. Simple decisions that should have taken seconds were becoming impossible. Fleet status, yes, what about the fleet? Sir, Admiral Groth reports that the command staff is experiencing widespread illness. Symptoms include confusion, delayed reaction times, and difficulty concentrating. Medical teams believe it may be some form of slow-acting poison. Poison? Krex tried to focus on this information, but his thoughts kept drifting. Who would dare poison Vorthak commanders? Sir, investigation has traced the source to a human restaurant in the capital city. The proprietor has been serving meals to high-ranking officials for 3 years. Chemical analysis indicates that certain ingredients in popular dishes contained compounds that build up in the system over time. Krex felt a moment of clarity through the mental fog. The human chef? David Park? But he was so respectful, so grateful to serve the Vorthak Empire. Yes, sir. Apparently his gratitude was not entirely genuine. The true scope of human planning became clear as reports continued to pour in from across the galaxy. Human operatives who had seemed like harmless civilians for decades were revealing themselves as highly trained military specialists. Trading posts became communication centers. Restaurants became poison distribution networks. Cultural exchange students became sabotage experts. Back in Sol System, Admiral Chen watched the reports from her deep cover agents with satisfaction. The alien fleets that had come to destroy humanity were falling apart from within. But more importantly, the alien governments that had sent those fleets were learning a crucial lesson about human capabilities. Admiral, reported Commander Walsh, we're receiving surrender requests from 12 alien worlds. They're offering to withdraw from the war in exchange for our agents stopping their operations. Chen shook her head. No deals, not yet. They need to understand the full scope of what they've gotten themselves into. She turned to the communication station. Open a channel to all alien forces in Sol System and all alien government centers monitoring our transmissions. When the connection was established, Chen addressed the camera directly. To all alien species currently at war with humanity, you came to our home system with 3,000 ships because you believed we were too dangerous to be allowed to exist. You were right about us being dangerous, but you were wrong about everything else. She paused to let that sink in. You thought you were fighting a primitive species that had gotten lucky with some advanced technology. Instead, you're fighting a species that has been studying you, learning from you, and preparing to defend itself since the day we first met you. The tactical display behind her showed the alien fleet in Sol System, now reduced to less than half its original strength and completely unable to coordinate its attacks. You assumed we would fight the way you fight, with honor and according to established rules. But humans don't fight for honor. We fight for survival. And when we fight for survival, there are no rules except victory. She leaned forward, her voice becoming cold and hard. Every world you control has human agents on it. Every computer system you rely on has been compromised. Every ship you build has been sabotaged. Every meal your leaders eat has been prepared by human hands. You declared war on a species that has been inside your defenses for over a century. The silence that followed her words was complete. Across the galaxy, alien leaders were beginning to understand that they had not attacked humanity. They had attacked a trap that humanity had been building for generations. Chen smiled. You wanted to observe closely. Are you learning anything interesting? 6 months after the war began, the Galactic Council chambers were silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. The magnificent hall that had once hosted proud declarations of alien superiority now felt like a tomb. Representatives from dozens of species sat in their assigned seats, but none of them met each other's eyes. The human delegation entered through the main doors, their footsteps echoing in the vast space. Admiral Sarah Chen led the group, wearing her dress uniform with quiet dignity. Behind her walked diplomats, military officers, and technical specialists. They moved with the confidence of people who had nothing left to prove. Supreme Commander Vex of the Zephyrian spoke first, his voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Chen, the Galactic Council requests, we ask for your terms. Chen took her place at the center of the chamber, where once alien representatives had delivered ultimatums to humanity. The irony was not lost on anyone present. Before we discuss terms, she said calmly, I think we should review what has happened over the past 6 months. She activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red markers indicated alien worlds where human operations were still active. There were hundreds of them. The Zephyrian Empire has lost effective control of 43% of its worlds, Chen began matter-of-factly, not through invasion or bombardment, but through the systematic collapse of government infrastructure. Your citizens no longer trust your ability to protect them. Your military can no longer communicate effectively. Your economy has stopped functioning because your supply chains have been disrupted. Supreme Commander Vex said nothing. What could he say? Everything Chen described was accurate. The Nexari Republic has discovered that 60% of its newest warships cannot function in combat, Chen continued. Your manufacturing centers have been shut down by computer viruses. Your logical decision-making algorithms have been fed false data for so long that they can no longer produce reliable results. Your mathematical models of reality no longer match actual reality. Chancellor Prime Nexus stared at his hands. The perfect Nexari logical mind had been reduced to confused uncertainty by an enemy that refused to be logical. The Vorthak Empire has lost its entire senior command structure to gradual poisoning, Chen said, turning to the ancient aliens. Your military traditions, built over thousands of years, have been neutralized by an enemy you never saw coming. Your proud warrior culture has been defeated by a chef with a smile and a clever recipe. Elder Warlord Krex was not present. He was still in a medical facility, slowly recovering from years of accumulated toxins. His replacement, a much younger Vorthak named Thek, could only nod in acknowledgement. Chen turned off the holographic display and faced the assembled aliens directly. You declared war on humanity because you thought we were too dangerous to exist alongside civilized species. You were afraid that our aggressive nature would disrupt the peaceful order of the galaxy. She paused and smiled slightly. You were absolutely correct. The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This was not what they had expected from peace negotiations. But you made one crucial mistake, Chen continued. You assumed that aggressive meant stupid. You thought that because humans fight when cornered, we must fight without thinking. You believed that because we come from a dangerous world, we must be crude and unsophisticated. She began walking slowly around the chamber, addressing each alien delegation in turn. The truth is exactly the opposite. Humans are aggressive because we learned to think 3 steps ahead of every threat. We survived on Earth by being smarter than everything that wanted to kill us. When we met you, we immediately began planning for the day you might want to kill us too. Admiral Harrison from the human delegation stood and activated another display. This one showed the scope of human intelligence operations across the galaxy. The network was vast, sophisticated, and had been operating for over a century. Every human who left Earth for the past 150 years was part of this operation, Harrison explained. Traders, diplomats, scientists, tourists, workers, students, all of them had secondary objectives related to intelligence gathering and strategic positioning. We've been inside your governments, your militaries, your economies, and your societies since first contact. Why? Asked Chancellor Prime Nexus, speaking for the first time. Why go to such lengths? We welcomed you into galactic society. We offered you trade, technology, cultural exchange. Chen stopped walking and looked directly at him. Because we studied your history. We learned what happened to species that trusted you completely. The Kalari trusted Nexari logic and ended up as computational slaves. The Dresh trusted Zephyrian honor and became subjects of your empire. The Mokari trusted Vorthak military tradition and watched their homeworld get conquered. The chamber became even quieter. These were old wounds that the galactic powers preferred not to discuss. We realized that every species in this galaxy has only 2 options, Chen continued. Submit to your collective will or be destroyed as a threat. There is no third choice. So we created one. She returned to the center of the chamber. We made ourselves too dangerous to attack and too valuable to destroy. You cannot conquer us because we have been preparing for that possibility since we first met you. You cannot ignore us because we are already part of every system you depend on. What do you want? Asked Elder Thek of the Vorthak. Tribute? Territory? Submission? Chen shook her head. We want what we have always wanted. To be left alone to live as we choose. To explore the galaxy without asking permission. To defend ourselves without being told it's too aggressive. To exist without constantly proving we deserve to exist. She activated one final display, showing human colonies and ships throughout the galaxy. The old Galactic Council is finished. You've proven that you cannot be trusted with the power to decide which species deserves to live. From now on, the galaxy will operate under different rules. What rules? Asked Supreme Commander Vex. Simple ones, Chen replied. Every species has the right to exist and defend itself. No species has the right to demand submission from another. And if you threaten humanity again, we will not give you 6 months to realize your mistake. We will end the threat immediately and permanently. The alien representatives looked at each other uncertainly. And our current difficulties? Asked Chancellor Prime Nexus. We'll continue until you formally acknowledge the new arrangement, Chen said. Your computer viruses will be removed when you sign the treaty. Your poisoned leaders will receive medical treatment when you agree to the terms. Your sabotage ships will be repaired when you accept the new galactic order. She smiled coldly. But the intelligence networks stay in place forever. Consider them a permanent reminder of what happens when you underestimate humanity. Elder Thek spoke carefully. And if we refuse these terms? Chen's smile became genuinely warm, which somehow made it more terrifying. Then you'll have the opportunity to see what Phase 3 of human planning looks like. So far, we've only been defending ourselves and making a point. If you refuse our generous peace offer, we'll show you what human aggression actually means when we stop holding back. The silence stretched for long minutes. Finally, Supreme Commander Vex stood up slowly. The Zephyrian Empire accepts your terms. One by one, the other alien representatives rose and gave their agreement. They had no choice. The war had taught them that humanity was not just another species to be conquered or controlled. They were something entirely new in galactic history. A species that could not be defeated because they had been preparing for every possible defeat since the day they realized they might need to fight. Admiral Chen nodded formally. Excellent. Welcome to the new galaxy, where humans are no longer the new species asking for permission to exist. We're the species that makes sure everyone else remembers why diversity of thought and capability is more important than unity under any single vision. As the alien representatives filed out to begin implementing the new treaties, Chen remained in the chamber with her staff. The Great Hall felt different now, less intimidating, more like just another room where people talked about practical matters. Admiral, asked Colonel Park, do you think they'll try again someday? Maybe in 100 years when they think we've gotten soft? Chen looked at the tactical display still showing human agents positioned throughout the galaxy. They're welcome to try, but they'll be making the same mistake as before. Which mistake is that? Chen smiled as she headed for the exit, thinking that humans ever stop preparing for the next war. Outside the council chambers, the galaxy was learning to live with a new reality. Children on alien worlds were already learning about the human war in their schools, studying how a species everyone thought they understood had proven impossible to predict or defeat. The lesson was simple but profound. When humans say they want to be left alone, they mean it. And when humans say observe closely, they mean everyone should pay very careful attention to what comes next. The galaxy was finally ready to listen.